Today I'm going to discuss the rocking motion of the child falling asleep. And it's realized through this redundant rhythm and melodic figure together, synthesized, that creates a rocking of the baby to sleep. It's very obvious that this comes through, all through the piece. Now this initial figure is a little bit extended in the middle section. But let's look at the first section first, and then that comes back at the end too. So what you have is an eighth, 2/16, lean less, then a 16th to a dotted eighth. The question is, that is so relentless, how do I get the rocking motion? The way I get it is this way. I lean on the C, then I do less on the B, and then I spring forward to the F sharp, to the longer note. Do it again. Lean less, spring forward there. Do it again. Now this time the left hand goes to a B minor chord, so it's crescendo, and then it's diminuendo. Now there are a couple of places where I do a little bit, I don't like to use the word cheating because I can't really hold down some of these lower thirds. So I use the pedal where my hand isn't big enough, and that would be right here. You probably noticed that I didn't do this because I get very tight and I can't get the lean less that I want. So I hold the notes down for as long as I can, and then I just drag over and I let the pedal hold that for me, and then I go back to it. Now notice here, 3 is my conduit over to the 10th. There's a 10th there, which is bundled into a chord. There. So with Schumann, you got to do these accommodations for yourself because he makes it really hard unless you have this huge hand to hold down some of these notes. So that's another part of this, and learning how to adjust and change things a little bit so that you can keep the relentless motion that's rocking and not go, uh-oh, here comes this stretch and it's going to get all squeezed out. You don't want to do that. And that would be right here. If you look at the page, it looks like, oh my gosh, look what I have to do there, if I really observed everything and held everything down. So that's what's happening in the left hand. Now in the right hand, you have that same figure that comes in almost like a canon. It doesn't come at the beginning, it comes as you're playing that rhythm, you're coming in with the same rhythm and onto the, I believe it's the second beat. Now the right hand's doing that same rhythm, but with different notes. So you get this. Now this time I'm leaning on the G because I put a little accent on the G there. So I'm not going B lean less to the G, I'm doing the opposite. Because that's what he wrote in. And then we're doing it again. But I lean on this less, and then I spring forward to that G. Now that disappears now, that accent. So now I'm back to this. And then there's a diminuendo. Diminuendo. There's a lot to think about because you have to think about how you are phrasing that rhythm at the same time. What's the overall dynamic that's going through that first phrase? You put it together, you still have to be very aware of how you are shaping that left hand, which was lean less, lean less. Lean less, lean less. So notice my fingering here is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. The reason I like 1, 2, 1 instead of 2, 1, 2 is because when I get to those two B's next to each other, I want a color change. I don't want to get a Rosie the Riveter sound there, which can happen when you have two repeated notes. They can get very vertical and turfy sounding. So by switching fingers, you get another color. You can see how the color changed between those B's. That's just some suggestions. You don't have to take those suggestions. You could try the alternative fingering. Now when you put it together, you're going to be playing off the counterpoint, but you want it to be woven between the hands. You have a continuous weaving between the hands, such as lean less, disappeared. In the right hand. So that's that whole first section, and I'm behind tempo. So we ended up on the dominant of E minor, on the B major chord, which is this chord. Now, instead of going to E minor, the big surprise is the middle section is going to E major, and major is less sad than minor, I think, in this case, but has kind of a jazzy quality to me, because this is what's happening in the middle section. It's so different than now you can see that what's very interesting is that the left hand picks up that beginning rhythm but extends it to this. Now we're in major. This is the extension of the rhythm. We didn't have that second part of the rhythm at the beginning. So now you're aware of that. And you're still aware of do, lean, less, go to the syncopated do, re, bom, lean, less, do. Syncopated note as a destination, fall down. So how to shape this is very important. Now the right hand, it's got this long quarter note, and then it has a dominant 7 with a ninth on the outside. So you have a ninth. And you're supposed to hold that through here, all the way through. Now you can switch over to a 5 here. And I think that's what I do. Let me see. Yeah, I switched to a 5 so I can connect it. 3-5, F sharp, 3-5, 2, 4, 2, 1. So you don't get a sudden disjuncture there. So that's what's happening. So we have this, very soft. Lean less to now we have something different. The rhythm is basically recognizable. Resolve it. Lean less to lean less to there. Syncopated note is a destination note. So, it takes the beginning idea and just extends it a bit in the middle with the rhythm. And you heard what he did. He extended it. Now in this next section, he has a very interesting line in the bass, which gets almost hard to hear down there. It's way down low. So when I do it, first I do it an octave higher to hear it, where he does this in this new section. By the way, he ended on the dominant of E major, which was this. This is what we last heard. And what he's going to do is he's going to take the D sharp and move it down in the right hand to D natural, create a B minor chord. And by the way, he's going to be going toward A major in this next little section. And then he's going to go back to, I believe it is E major. So he has a sequence coming in E major, but we're going to go into A major now. So in the left hand, though, this is what's happening. I'm going to do it up here so you hear it. This is an octave higher. There, and resolve. Should be another B here. Very soft. So that's what is going to happen, but an octave lower, which is a little bit darker. There, and in A major and sequence. Now we go B major, which is dominant of E major. Okay, now in the upstairs, you're going to have a pileup of clusters. Just you're going to hear a very interesting thing where he just lets these suspensions cluster over with dissonances. Remember, we went from the D sharp here with which was the semicadence, to the D natural up here. Because we have an second inversion of B minor. And what he's doing here is he's going to pile things up like this. And then he's going to let go of the F sharp, but he's going to pile it up. There's a lot of overlapping. And he's going to sequence here. And he's going to pile up again these second steps. And then here, he lets go of the F sharp, and then he brings it back, and he lets go of the G sharp. It's very tricky what notes you're holding, what notes are staying. And I pretty much did that right. I'm not going to go over it again because it's very hard for me to talk and play over that. But you're going to notice lots of tie overs and things you say, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, because it's blurring the notes across, but that's exactly what he wants. And it works very well. Against that, of course, you have this counterpoint of that I played D, do, lean less, do, sequence, lean less, there, and then there, and there. So together you get this. This is beautiful, what's coming. It's the right notes. And what's coming now is that's a major seventh. He's going into G major, and you hear this little figure, again, the rhythmic figure we're familiar with is when there's two, 1, 2, get that right. So beautiful. He brings us back to E minor, back to what we know about. Now the end is quite different. Same rhythm, but something's different. This is different. He goes to ninths. It's hard to hold down here, but I do. And another ninth. That shouldn't have been so loud. And then he's falling away. And then finally, I'm trying to hold it down, but the pedal can hold that for me. 4 chord ends on the subdominant, and he brings in the bass note A. You hear it better? There it is. And I actually use soft pedal there because that has to go way, way down. Now, if you notice, I did hold notes down, which kind of squeezed out my 16ths. If I don't do that, I can still get away with the pedal helping to hold those notes down, but the ninths need to be held over. So I'm going to do it a little differently at the end in the left hand and see if I can accommodate to my small hand. Now here, 1, 2, 1. Now here's where I use 2, 1, 2. It goes 2, not 1, 2. 1, 4. That I can hold. But here, I'm going to let that go, so let the pedal do that. But here I must hold those ninths. So here again, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let the pedal hold those lower 2 notes down for me. Lean less, but here, that I must hold down. And then here, and again, let it hold it down for me, those 2 notes on the bottom. And then we hold the A across, by the way. And then at the end, breathing through that note. It's such a beautiful ending because it's up in the air. Okay, so let's see if I can play that last line. Actually, I've already played the tied over notes, the clusters. So they go into this now. The right hand is doing this, by the way. Should have held that across. Should be holding notes down. Lean last. resolves into this. I always say piano playing is micrometers. It's sort of like micrometers of, I need to get that cadence to be soft because it's come out of a very soft dominant, and my micrometer is, I don't have much kind of latitude to not fall down hard on that cadence. So I did want to do this again because there are notes being held down, and the F, that's held on the F sharp, G is held down, you can see. So you have to be aware of what's held down. And this is F sharp's held down all the way to the B top. Do, re, sol, 4, 5. It's all coming back. And the only thing I haven't played is here together, which is I'm watching that finger changing. Now watch what happens in the right hand, as well the left hand. Take your time, take your time. So what's really happening when you do the ninth, you're going to a note that's repeated upstairs right after it. So they go the same notes upstairs. I think you probably heard that when it does that. Let's see. Right here, two B's next to each other. A. You hear that? G. Now this hasn't been played perfectly, but anyway, you get the sense of no matter what you're playing, that the relentless rocking motion has to stay no matter what stretches you have of your hand, you have to keep that at the end. Anyway, I hope this works. This is the Logic Capture. I hope it get the right settings. It has the right settings that I put on it, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to stop it manually and drag it to YouTube.